Oh, I'm flossing. Tell a bitch get up. Hit it once, had a feeling nauseous.
What's up YouTube? Welcome to the official debut video of this channel. My name is JJ Buckets and today I'd like to introduce a mini-series to you all that I'm going to call Facts or Foolishness. The concept of this is pretty simple. We're going to be taking a look at some of the takes from NBA players, media, and other such. In doing so, we're going to examine the evidence and come down to a verdict on whether or not this take is a fact or what we're actually listening to is downright foolishness. To kick things off, we're going to examine Andre Iguodala's take on Steph Curry. Now, for those that haven't heard, Andre Iguodala came out and called his Warriors teammate the second best point guard of all time. Now, from what I've seen, a lot of NBA fans on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms have been quick to jump on Iguodala, proclaiming this is a bad take. Hell, some of them have even suggested that Adam Silver needs to administer a test for substance abuse to Andre Iguodala. That being said, I would say that I have seen a lot of terrible takes from NBA fans in regards to countering Iguodala's takes, so I wouldn't take this for more than what it is. And naturally, however, though, you would think that from all the negative reaction, this is a bad take and that this take is foolishness. But there's definitely a discussion to be had here. Even if I don't necessarily believe that Curry is the second best point guard of all time, the discussion's permissible and it's for sure more than warranted. So then, why have people been so quick to dismiss this take as fake news? Now, I see two main reasons pop out at me from the jump. The first one being, there's always a cloud of controversy surrounding takes where a current player is being discussed in terms of rankings amongst the all-time greats. Seeing a guy who's currently playing pop up with a lot of these NBA legends seems to rub a lot of people the wrong way. However, it's been done with guys like LeBron, it's been done with guys like Kobe, Tim Duncan, and others in the past. So there should be no reason that we can't extend this to Steph Curry. And the second reason here that I found is it's this thing called nostalgia goggles, and it really bothers me. Nostalgia always seems to make sports fans want to place former players, whom are admittedly legends in their own right, and often childhood heroes to many, above the current guys of today. This does tend to cloud judgment a little bit on adequately assessing current players in discussions like these. However, one must remember that today's superstars are simply tomorrow's legends. You may not see it now, but 5, 10, 20 years from now, these guys are going to be talked about in the same liking as those NBA legends we hold so dear today. This means we should not be so quick to dismiss current players from discussions like these, even if there is some reluctance to rank a guy who's not finished his playing career. Now that we've identified some of the reasons that people are wrongly dismissing this take, we can take a closer look at why Iguodala may think that Curry is the second best point guard of all time. So, we're here to look at the facts, and here's some of the simple facts that we can take away from Steph Curry. He's currently the best point guard in the league. I don't think anybody would really dispute that, and he has been for a good measure of time now. Not only has he been the best point guard in the league for a while, I think there's been at least a reasonable gap between him and the second best point guard, whether it be Russell Westbrook, whether you think that's Kyrie Irving, or even if you think that's Damian Lillard. Most guys would tend to agree that Steph Curry comes first, then there's a bit of a drop off, and then the second best point guard is brought into that discussion. And in the same time span that he's been largely considered the best point guard in the league, he's also been largely considered a top 5 player, or at worst, just outside of it. His accolades pretty much speak for themselves. He's got 3 championships under his belt, and he's likely on the way to more, if we're being honest, because that Warriors team is, well, it's stupid. He's a multiple-time MVP, he's a perennial all-star, and he's a perennial All-NBA guy. He's kind of good at this basketball thing. He's the greatest shooter of all time. I don't think anybody would reasonably dispute that. And he's got that talent paired with some of the best handles in NBA history as well. He's a great playmaker too. The presence of Steph Curry on the court alone warrants so much attention that it just creates a plethora of opportunities for all the guys around him to get good looks. This is why people tend to liken Curry to an offensive system of his own. It's also why a lot of people will say that while KD may be the Warriors' best player, that Steph Curry is the team's most valuable in terms of having the Warriors run at their max efficiency and having them play top potential. To boot, I think he's still a very underrated finisher around the basket, despite showing time and time again that he's on par with guys like Kyrie Irving, whom many consider the best finisher at that point guard position in the game today. I think when you look closer at it, the guys actually post really similar numbers, especially on things like contested layups, where you would think that Kyrie Irving is the clear front runner in this discussion. And I'm not saying he's not the best finisher around the basket. I'm just saying that Steph Curry is always kind of underrated in that department because people tend to forget it a little bit when they, see his flashy game in terms of the threes and the shooting and everything. It just it goes under the radar. And speaking of going under the radar, I think another quality that you can attribute to Steph Curry is he's even a sneaky good rebounder for that position. I wouldn't say he's elite by any means. There's definitely a lot better rebounding guards and point guards in specifically, i.e. Russell Westbrook. But he's not a bad rebounder by any means. He's definitely a good one. And sure, we can look at the weaknesses here. He may not be the best defender on the planet. And I think that's largely due to his size. But I wouldn't really go past saying he's worse than average to maybe slightly below average if you really want to, put that as a knock on his game. But I think that's really about it. He's maybe a little turnover prone, but there's not a lot of weaknesses to Steph Curry's game. And his weaknesses most certainly do not outweigh the strengths that Curry has. And more than any of this, though, if you want to understand how great Steph Curry really is, then you can look at the way that basketball is played today. The evolution of the game into a space and pace type of play is in large part and kind of almost exclusively due to what Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors have managed to do in this dynasty run of theirs. Curry has inspired an entire generation to stretch the floor and largely abandon the mid-range game in favor of the three-pointer that the entirety of the NBA is just in love with today. Bearing all this in mind, why would you dismiss Steph Curry from the all-time point guard discussion? It doesn't make sense to me. The guy has been a transcendent player who has changed the way that basketball is played, and it'd be hard to find that many guys that have done this kind of effect and have had this impact on basketball. Sure, like guys like LeBron have done it. I think guys like Jordan have done it earlier on. Wilt Chamberlain did it. And Steph Curry is in that discussion for how much he's revolutionized basketball. He's changed the way that teams want to run their offense, where they just want to get the majority of their shots at the three-point line and so much more. It's all about high percentage looks or big rewards. And since we're talking about him being the second best point guard of all time, though, we have to consider who's around him, though. Now, Magic Johnson in this discussion seems to be the clear-cut number one, and I feel like that's a reasonably comfortable claim. I don't think anybody's really going to dispute that. It's more or less unanimous. But who comes after in that discussion? So, we've mentioned Curry. I think the other guys that you would have to bring up are guys like John Stockton, Chris Paul even, Isaiah Thomas, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Oscar Robertson. Some others are going to come to mind. But when you look at the cast there, by comparison, would you really confidently place any of these guys above Steph right now? Sure, there are facets of the game that you could say those point guards are better than Steph at. You could say that some of those guys are better just passers, better pure distributors, or they're better defenders. Or for a few of them, you might even say it's both. But as a total package of what Steph Curry gives your basketball team, I think it's hard to say that any of those other guys really give more value than what Steph Curry gives you on the court. And frankly, I don't think I would go as far as saying that any of those guys really do. Sure, Stockton's close, but like the other aspect of this, as much as you don't want to, acknowledge it sometimes, you look at the career, you look at the accolades, you look at some of the things they've managed to accomplish, and while all of these guys have had impressive resumes, Steph Curry not only passes the eye test, he not only makes your team better by just being on the court and just having the threat of Steph being there alone, he's managed to translate it into results, into championships, into MVPs, into winning. And it's hard to argue that. It really is. But you know what? I get it. I really do. It's fun to hate the Warriors. It's fun to hate the dynasty, the team that's always winning. And it's fun to reminisce in the glory days of the guys that came before, the legends, the childhood heroes, the people that inspired you to play basketball. But at the same time, though, you have to give credit where credit is due. And as Steph continues to add more and more accolades to what is surely going to be an all-time career, I think Iguodala is onto something, and I'm gonna have to side with him here. Iguodala coming out and saying that Steph Curry is the second best point guard of all time has a lot of credentials to it, and I'm gonna have to side with him here. I'm with him. I really am. I think there's a lot of credit to what he is saying here. And on this first episode of Fact or Foolishness, we're going to give Iguodala's take a thumbs up and support his claim that yes, indeed, Steph Curry, he is the second best point guard of all time. Thank you guys so much for watching this channel. Thank you guys so much for supporting it. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like it. My name has been JJ Buckets, and I am out.